What is the appeal of anime? Why do people like it so much? What separates your average popular anime from your average popular Western TV show? Why is it that all the most popular animes are just Naruto remakes, but now with an added isekai tag? How Not to Summon a Demon Lord is an isekai harem anime about a guy who's a loser with no social skills, who, instead of trying to improve his actual life and make it worth living, just escapes into video games. He has managed to become the most powerful player in the fantasy MMORPG called Cross Reverie, which is of course a clever contrast to his real life where he is a nobody. If he had spent the time grinding in the game, instead reading self-help books and getting an education, maybe he would have become an overlord there too. Nobody knows what could have been, because he escapes to the video game where consequences are reduced to numbers and you can safely be the demon lord who's cool and badass. Diablo, as his demon lord persona is called, then proceeds to be summoned into a fantasy world, which happens to be just like his favorite video game. This is an ingenious decision, and for once, the isekai tag is not just a cheap way to appeal to losers. He is not summoned as himself, but rather as his actual avatar in the game, the all-powerful, handsome, epic demon lord. But the Magnificent series keeps one deliberate trait from his former life. He has no social skills. Now, you might say that this is simply for comedic effect, but no, that's what they want the average sheep to believe, because they know that they are not capable of introspection and standards and reading between the lines. The reason why he keeps his social anxiety and spurgs out the two hot babe slaves that summoned him is this show cleverly highlighting that there is no quick fix. There is no, if only I was a Chad, it's so unfair that I was born with X trait. It makes the protagonist and an intellectual viewer think about what is confidence really, and this becomes even more evident as more and more the core of his character development is about him faking being confident and scary by acting the way he thinks his avatar would. He's faking it until he's making it, which, in case you're not aware, is basically the same as just being it. What is the difference between faking confidence and actually being confident if the external world can't tell the difference? How Not to Summon a Demon Lord questions the very first self-help advice people regurgitate mindlessly without actually knowing anything about it. You have probably heard it. Be yourself. Yikes. Anyone who has tried to grind the game of IRL knows that being yourself sucks. Yourself is a lazy, selfish cunt who wants instant gratification and fails to empathize with people's intentions rather than actions. Yourself, which essentially is your ego, is by definition self-absorbed and fails to consider others in the long term. This is not just a problem in the fact that it makes you a dick, but also because it limits your ability to grow along others rather than instead of them. Most parts of life actually isn't a zero-sum game where you have to compete, and that's why you have to abandon this old chant of cringe that you should be yourself. You shouldn't be yourself. You should be like the ideal you look up to and wish you were like. You shouldn't be content with obesity. You should strive to be the healthy, average BMI person you think looks better. I'm not looking down on what someone is right now. All I'm saying is, be real with yourself. Don't be yourself, be real with yourself. Are you really the best you could be? The way this is portrayed in How Not to Summon a Demon Lord is that he has been given everything someone shallow enough to blame external factors on their failure would say they are amiss. He is handsome, strong, powerful. He can basically do whatever he wants to whoever he wants, control the world and not worry about anything. But instead he is caught up in his own social anxiety, where he does not know how to act. He instead acts the way he thinks his avatar would. His avatar is in essence the ideal of the protagonist, so what he is doing when faking confidence is actually just behaving the way he thinks he should be, ideally. He isn't being himself because that simply wouldn't work. He is being the self he assumes would be the most capable of having success in the world, and so should you. If you're afraid of not seeming cool when socializing, the best trick is not to say nothing and certainly not to be yourself. Charisma, just like everything else, is a learned skill, and not everyone has a talent for it. But it can still be learned nonetheless and practiced. Practice behaving like the type of person you idealize. And now, of course, that doesn't mean behaving like a demon lord. In our world, that means observing those who are successful academically, career-wise, and most importantly, socially. Empathy is your most powerful weapon and is required to successfully introspect about how others perceive you. I'm not telling you to become a drone, a bot who only does like others do. I'm saying be your ideal self, which is basically yourself but better. If you idealize people who speak up against injustice or helps those weaker than them, then do that. If you idealize programmers who can write code for 20 hours straight, do that. If you idealize alpha males who are jacked, read self-help books and go to the gym. It may seem a bit synthetic and ingenuine, but that's only because everyone is brainwashed by this idea that you should be yourself. Yourself is much more than just the initial ego. Okay, but the reason why this show is so perfect actually goes even deeper than this, because as I said initially, what is the appeal of anime? Why is the isekai tag so popular, and why do we hold no standards for it? Well, because it's quite literally an escape. You're escaping into a show about someone literally escaping to another world, where they start over with an advantage that they can now harness. Because they're all of a sudden special and not invisible, people are drawn to them without them having to try, and they can forget about the past. In How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, the protagonist is overpowered on purpose, not by mistake. It's because it wants you to never feel the thrill of danger and insecurity. It wants you to feel safe, like it's all gonna be okay, because at the end of the day, the main character is in control and the most powerful. Who says a story must be difficult to watch? Why not just be safe and escape, which is the essence of anime? The point of anime is to escape from the difficulties of real life, so why riddle it with complex characters, difficult journeys, moral dilemmas, and hopeless situations? Why not just be safe with an overpowered demon lord who doesn't need to worry about impressing girls since they are all swarming to him without him doing anything? How Not to Summon a Demon Lord is an intellectual comment about how low the standards have become for the people who consume anime. They will rate it 7.27 out of 10 and watch every other isekai because they don't want something that highlights an issue that's painful to think about. They don't want characters that could abandon your self-insert or weaknesses that makes you worry if the protagonist is going to be okay. They want to feel safe, and How Not to Summon a Demon Lord has perfected the isekai genre. Even when he is spazzing out about what to do socially, you know he will be fine, because he can just LARP as his avatar. Of course, there's other brilliant details worthy of mention, such as the fact that basically every single other character is a beautiful girl, and he has a whole menagerie of different shapes and sizes and traits and deres at his disposal. This is of course intentional, and the fact that the initial two got enslaved to him is a symbol of how in the fantasy world you don't have to be afraid of rejection. A slave can't not consent, since they are your property. The only other major male character is a cuck whose only purpose is for you to be superior to. There's also the softcore semi-porn aspect of this show, which is also a critique of fanservice and ecchi ruining any show's integrity. What's the most beautiful about How Not to Summon a Demon Lord is the fact that it's not pretending to be something it's not. It has embraced every single aspect of being a brainless, degenerate isekai harem anime, so it purposefully puts the viewers in ridiculous situations where you can pretend like you're not watching hentai. It is probably the most underrated anime of all time, even by those who already like it. I dare say it's up there with Evangelion, and is basically 2018's version of the same point, except reversed. Evangelion highlights how your anime dream is unrealistic, people suck and will abandon you, and you should feel bad and anxious. How Not to Summon a Demon Lord lulls you into a fantasy where you're safe and satisfied. When we look back at the 21st century, this show will go down in history as an icon of escapism.